it's the first potential sighting of 2025. It's absolutely fantastic. It really looks like something is like bulging out from underneath the water.
What we do know is that the photo that's published is substantially cropped and zoomed in, which blurs the shape of the creature a bit and skews any sense of scale or perspective. But when some experts go back and examine the original uncropped photo, they see something entirely different.
Those words broke the silence inside the research vessel, quiet, trembling, almost unbelieving. Within hours, news outlets across the globe erupted with the headline no one ever thought they'd read. Loch Ness Monster, finally proven real.
A new picture has surfaced showing what appeared to be a large dark mass beneath the calm, still waters of the loch.
It began on a cold morning in the Scottish Highlands. Mist drifted low across the still waters of Loch Ness as a group of researchers lowered their sonar scanner into the dark, icy depths. Moments later, the monitor flickered, and there it was, a massive shape, deep beneath the surface. A living creature, more than 30 feet long, moving with slow, deliberate grace.
Seeing the uncropped version changes their perspective completely.
For nearly a century, the world had argued whether the legend was mere folklore, a trick of the light, or something older, something that never truly died out. Nothing had ever been confirmed, until now. The legend of Loch Ness had crossed from myth into reality, but what followed next would make even the believers question everything. Long before sonar scans and drone footage, the legend of the Loch Ness Monster was already alive, whispered beside peat fire hearths, passed from elders to children, and etched into the mist-filled folklore of the Scottish Highlands to ancient storytellers. Monsters were not impossibilities. They were warnings, omens, or guardians of the deep. Dark waters that defined their world. One of the first written accounts dates back to 565 AD, when the Irish monk St. Columba was said to have faced a water beast on the River Ness. According to the Chronicle, he ordered the creature, in the name of God, to retreat, and it obeyed. To the faithful, it was a miracle. To historians, the birth of a legend that would never quite die. For centuries afterward, tales of strange beings inhabiting Scotland's lochs continued to surface. Water spirits known as kelpies. Shape-shifting horses that lured travelers to their doom blurred the line between myth and cautionary tale. Yet, beneath those stories lingered something more tangible, the idea that certain waters hid things older than memory itself. Then came the modern age. As roads and railways pierced the remote highlands, Loch Ness, one of the largest and deepest lakes in Britain, emerged from obscurity. In the 1930s, a newly constructed dam subtly changed its level and current. And almost overnight, sightings of a great creature began to pour in, whether the disturbance awakened something below or simply stirred human imagination. The world was enthralled. Witnesses described a long-necked figure, a humped back cutting through the surface, gliding with deliberate grace. Newspapers spread the stories, cameras pointed toward the mist, and suddenly an ancient myth had entered the modern spotlight. In an age fascinated by fossils and forgotten beasts, Nessie felt almost plausible, a prehistoric survivor haunting the present. What began as fireside folklore had become a global obsession, and with every ripple on the loch, the mystery deepened, reminding the world that sometimes legends don't vanish, they adapt. Waiting for the moment they're seen again, what followed would ignite one of the most enduring mysteries of the modern age. For centuries, Nessie had been a fireside legend, a story whispered in the glow of Highland hearths. But in the spring of 1933, the legend broke the surface. Aldi and John Mackay were driving along the loch when something vast and alive rose from the depths, rolling, plunging, and vanishing again. Within days, the Inverness Courier carried their account, and the quiet highlands suddenly became the center of a global obsession. Cameras turned toward the mist. Reporters poured in. Had a prehistoric survivor truly awakened in Scotland's deep glacial lake? A year later came the image that would define the myth, the surgeon's photograph, a long, curved neck rising from rippling water. For decades, it was accepted as proof, even when, 60 years later, it was exposed as a hoax built from a toy submarine. Belief didn't die. If one image was fake, what were they trying to hide? Through the 20th century, sightings multiplied. Fishermen, tourists, policemen, even scientists. The descriptions echoed one another, a serpentine body, several humps, a neck that rose like a periscope. In 1960, engineer Tim Dinsdale filmed a dark form gliding swiftly across the loch. Experts said it wasn't a boat. Whatever it was, it moved with intent and weight. Then came sonar. In 1972, an American expedition captured underwater photos of a diamond-shaped flipper. 15 years later, Operation Deepscan swept the loch with a fleet of sonar vessels and recorded several large, moving contacts. None could be identified. Was it science catching up to myth, or myth outrunning science, even now? The sightings haven't stopped. In 2020, sonar registered a creature-like form 30 feet down. In 2023, a drone recorded a dark figure gliding silently through the morning mist, so clear that even skeptics hesitated. Yet patterns emerged: calm waters, soft light, mirrored reflections, the perfect stage for illusion. Could it be waves, seiches, tricks of perception, or something else? Because after nearly a century of evidence and doubt, one truth still endures. The waters of Loch Ness move when no wind blows, and somewhere beneath that surface, the mystery lives on. As sightings multiplied and speculation spiraled, science finally stepped in, not to ridicule believers, but to test the unknown. Loch Ness stretches 23 miles through the Highlands, plunging nearly 800 feet in places a natural vault of shadows, deep enough to hide almost anything. Could the truth really be resting down there, unseen for centuries? By the late 20th century, the hunt turned high-tech. In 1987, Operation Deepscan launched across the loch 24 boats in tight formation, each armed with sonar. For days, sound waves probed the abyss. The results, several large, moving contacts, each the size of a bus, each unexplained, fish debris, or something alive that didn't want to be found. Then came 2003. A BBC expedition swept the loch with 600 sonar beams and satellite guidance, mapping every contour in exquisite detail. When no large creature appeared, headlines declared the monster dead, but experts urged caution. Absence of evidence, one sonar analyst said quietly, isn't evidence of absence. The mystery refused to die, and science adapted. In 2018, New Zealand geneticist Neil Gemmell led an environmental DNA survey, collecting over 200 water samples. Every living thing leaves a trace: skin cells, waste, scales, a genetic signature in the water. When the results came back, there was no sign of a prehistoric reptile, but an astonishing amount of eel DNA. Could Nessie have been a giant eel all along? Some scientists said yes. Locals laughed. "You're telling me," one boatman joked. "The world's been chasing a big fish for 100 years. Then, 2023 changed everything. A European research consortium combined sonar and LiDAR in a synchronized sweep. For 3 minutes, their instruments tracked a solid self-propelled object roughly 25 feet long, maintaining depth and direction before descending into a trench. It behaved like something was aware. Marine biologist Dr. Marianne Coulter reported. It adjusted course and avoided our noise. The footage, paired with sonar maps and thermal overlays, shocked the scientific community. It also triggered a re-evaluation of past findings. Could this be the same type of object seen in Tim Dinsdale's 1960 film, or a relative of whatever appeared in the infamous drone footage the year before? More importantly, what kind of creature behaves this way, leaves no visible trace, and appears only in brief, fleeting moments? Some believe that we may be looking at a previously undocumented species of aquatic mammal or amphibian that has adapted to Loch Ness's unique low-light ecosystem. Others argue it could be an evolutionary offshoot, a relic population of some long-forgotten marine animal cut off from the sea thousands of years ago. And then there are those who hold to something more symbolic. Nessie, they say, is not just a creature, but a testament to the world's love for mystery and our refusal to believe that every corner of the earth has already been explained. Whatever the truth may be, one fact remains unshaken. The Loch Ness Monster is real to millions, and with technology finally catching up to legend, that reality may no longer be just a matter of faith, but of discovery. For nearly a century, the Loch Ness Monster had existed in that hazy borderland between myth and memory, a story told in pubs, whispered across misty shores, dismissed by scientists, and cherished by dreamers. But then came the day that changed everything, the day the world could no longer look away. Headlines blazed across every major network. Loch Ness is real unexplainable discovery, stunned scientists. It began quietly, almost skeptically. In early spring, an international team of researchers arrived at the loch under the name Project Deepscan 2, a nod to the legendary 1987 sonar sweep that had once hinted at large, moving objects below. Their goal wasn't to prove a monster existed, it was to end the debate for good. Using state-of-the-art underwater drones, AI-enhanced sonar, and environmental DNA samplers, they aimed to deliver the final word on the world's most famous mystery. Many privately admitted they were there to put the legend to rest. But on the fourth day, that mission changed. At 9:47 a.m., sonar operators detected an enormous moving mass, larger than anything ever recorded in the loch. At first, they brushed it off as a log, a current anomaly, or perhaps a school of fish distorted by sound waves. But then the image shifted. The shape began to move deliberately, rhythmically tracing a slow curve across the sonar screen, 30 feet long, maybe more. The outline was serpentine, flexible, alive. The control room fell silent. One operator whispered, "It's moving against the current." Within minutes, a submersible drone was in the water. Its camera descended into blackness, following faint motion signals. For several tense minutes, it transmitted blurred glimpses, shadows gliding past, a disturbance of sediment, a flicker of movement, too smooth to be mechanical. Then, abruptly, the signal dropped. The last data packet sent before the feed went dead was from the drone's thermal sensors registering something large, warm, and in motion, retreating into the depths. When the data reached the surface, the team began processing the environmental DNA samples collected earlier that morning. They expected the usual signatures: salmon, trout, eels, algae. But one result didn't fit. A strand of DNA with no match in any global genetic database. Not an error, not contamination. Something unclassified belonging to a large, vertebrate species unknown to science. This time, there was no easy dismissal. Within hours, samples were flown to labs in the US, UK, and Japan. The independent teams all reported the same conclusion: the sequence was genuine, and it came from something real. At a hastily organized press conference, lead researcher Dr. Fiona Wallace stepped to the podium, visibly shaken. Cameras flashed. "We don't know exactly what it is," she said carefully, "but something lives here, something we haven't documented before. This is the beginning of a new chapter in biological discovery." Within minutes, the announcement went global. News anchors who had once mocked the legend now spoke with awe. Scientists called it the most significant zoological mystery of the century. Social media exploded with hashtags Nessie confirmed, Monster Truth, Loch Ness DNA flooding every platform. Tourism to the Highlands surged overnight. Hotels filled with journalists, believers, and skeptics chasing the story firsthand. Then, just when the world was catching its breath, Project Deepscan 2 released the footage. An 11-second clip, a vague silhouette, blurred by the water but undeniably massive, gliding beneath the surface. A subtle shift, a ripple, the slow, graceful motion of what appeared to be a fin or flipper. It wasn't clear. It didn't have to be. The image spoke to something primal, the possibility that humanity had just glimpsed a living legend. Skeptics, of course, pushed back. Some argued it was a misidentified seal, a sonar ghost, a hoax amplified by media hysteria. But this time, the evidence spoke louder. The sonar signatures, the drone footage, and the verified DNA results formed a chain that couldn't be broken. For the first time, science and belief stood on the same side of the story. Nessie wasn't being declared a prehistoric monster. No one was claiming she was a surviving plesiosaur or a myth reborn. What they were admitting finally was simpler and far more profound: something real, something alive, exists in Loch Ness. As documentaries rushed into production and the Scottish Parliament debated designating the loch as a protected ecological site, one question echoed across every newsroom and cafe, every lab and living room around the world. If Nessie is real, what else might be waiting to be found? The discovery at Loch Ness did more than confirm an ancient legend. It cracked open the foundations of science, faith, and imagination for generations. Nessie had been dismissed as folklore, a trick of the light, a hoax that refused to die. But now, with sonar scans, thermal footage, and verified DNA in hand, the world faced an unsettling truth. We had just found something that wasn't supposed to exist. The shock wasn't about the creature itself. It was about what it represented. Scientists, anthropologists, and philosophers all began to ask the same question: if this is real, what else have we missed? For decades, mainstream science had thrived on certainty, on mapping every inch of the known world. Nessie shattered that comfort. She reminded us that mystery is not a threat to science, it's its heartbeat. Every great discovery, from evolution to relativity, began with the courage to admit we don't know. And once again, humanity stood at the edge of the unknown. The find revived a once-mocked word, cryptid. Until now, it meant rumor Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Chupacabra. Overnight, it became a frontier. Major universities formed programs to study unexplained biological phenomena. Expeditions were funded to the Amazon's blackwater rivers, Siberia's frozen lakes, and the uncharted depths of the Pacific. What yesterday was dismissed as pseudoscience became tomorrow's research agenda. Marine biologists asked how a creature of that size could survive in such a harsh, food-poor environment. Was it one animal or a hidden species? Could it migrate through underground channels to the sea? Did we just rediscover a relic population from the Ice Age, an echo of an ancient ocean that never let go? Others suggested it might be an entirely new class of deep-diving mammal, capable of masking sonar and regulating its own heat. Each answer only deepened the wonder. For the first time in decades, Loch Ness wasn't a joke, it was a living laboratory. But beyond biology, something deeper stirred. A cultural awakening rippled through humanity's collective mind. Suddenly, the world looked wilder again. Legends once dismissed as fantasy began to feel like memory. From the Congo's Mokolembembe to China's Lake Tianchi monster, from Arctic ice caves to Mariana abysses, every myth flickered back to life. People asked if one monster is real, how many others might be. Historians pointed out that humankind has always needed its monsters not as terrors, but as mirrors. They reflect our fears, our hopes, our endless curiosity. From Viking carvings of sea serpents to dragons curling across medieval tapestries, we've always woven the unknown into our story. Maybe these myths were never about beasts at all, but about us, about the part of us that refuses to stop exploring. In Scotland, Nessie became more than folklore. She became identity. Parliament debated adding her to commemorative coins and passports. Conservationists pushed to protect the loch as a living heritage site. And across classrooms, children who once dreaded biology now dreamed of discovery. As one teacher said, Nessie made science magical again, and perhaps that's the truest legacy of all. In an age ruled by satellites, algorithms, and artificial intelligence, when we believe the map of Earth is complete. Nessie's emergence whispered the opposite. The map is never finished. The world still holds secrets vast, wild, and waiting. We set out to find a myth, said Dr. Fiona Wallace, and instead, we found wonder. This isn't the end of a mystery, it's the beginning of a new era of exploration. As her words echoed over the still waters, a ripple broke the surface, faint, silent, almost deliberate. And now the question turns to you. What do you believe? Was it evolution's hidden survivor, or something that defies every theory we know? Let us know what you think below, because in the search for truth, every voice adds another ripple on the water.